It's a good day, Steve. You want to know why it's a good day?
Why is it a good day?
Because senior producer from NFL Films and co-host of ESPN's NFL Matchup Show, Greg Cosell is back. You know, football is right on the cusp of returning.
It is a good day.
When you see this mug show up on the screen for our MSG viewers.
And it is a mug, for sure.
Greg, how you doing, man? It's good to see you.
I know. It's football's back. I'm pretty excited for this season. I have all my bold, definitive statements ready after one preseason week, so let's go.
That's right. It's funny because I know you're loving this because we said, here's a list of, like, I don't know, was it 10 guys, 8 guys. Watch these guys and give us your advice. That is like your wheelhouse, right? Is that like a gift that we gave to you, work to do?
Well, needless to say, Steve, and I hope I'm not, saying anything wrong here, but I can't watch all these preseason games every snap. It's not going to happen.
Oh,
yeah. Nobody's blaming you for that.
I'm right there with you, bro, Sleeve. Yeah. I'm watching one.
Yeah. But with that in mind, why don't we dive right in here? I don't know if there were any overarching thoughts that you took away from the Bills' first preseason game against the Lions, but if there are, why don't you take a swing here and just maybe give us some of your maybe concrete impressions that you feel comfortable weighing in on. I know it's only one preseason game. It's not real football, but was there anything you took away from it that made you feel favorably about some aspects of the Bills' play?
Well, I think you're starting with the rookies because, look, we know what they're trying to do with the defensive front. And by the way, I actually, this summer, believe it or not, maybe we can get into this another time, I watched every Bills defense third down snap from last year. So I did that this summer. And they're actually much more multiple and much more aggressive with pressure than people probably think. But anyway, obviously I was interested in seeing Epenesa, a second-year player. I was interested in seeing Rousseau and Basham, 2 first-year players, because obviously they put a lot of draft capital in the last 2 years into this defensive front. And while they are more aggressive than many might think, based on what Sean McDermott and Leslie Frazier have done throughout their careers, I think we all know that they would like to be able to generate meaningful pressure from their down 4. So obviously I focused my attention on that, and I was interested to see Rousseau, given that I thought 2 years ago, in 2019, the last time he played in college, that he did a lot of his work when he was reduced inside, either as a D tackle or as a zero technique head up on the center. And obviously he played all his snaps in this game outside. And I thought his first 2 edge pass rushes were really intriguing. One was speed to power. He immediately jarred Penei Sewell on his first pass rush. And then he had an inside arm stab on a second pass rush, which did jar Sewell as well. So I thought those were 2 really positive pass rushes for Rousseau on the outside in a wide 9 alignment, going against a guy that, and I'm not saying this as a joke, I've heard people I respect say this, going against a tackle who many think will be a Hall of Fame player when his career is over. So I thought that was a real positive sign.
Yeah, and when Rousseau, he got the sack, actually, and I thought, even when we were doing the game live, the inside rush by Harrison Phillips is really what caused it. Rousseau now, and the length he showed, his length reaching around Sewell to get there was really the difference. But that was really a combination rush that ended up in a sack for Rousseau. But I think Harrison Phillips flashed on that play right there on the inside on the guard one-on-one. But Rousseau's length is really a weapon that here, even at this early stage, he seems to be able to exploit.
Yeah, and as you know, Steve, that's a trait. People are always looking at what they think of as athletic traits, quickness, that kind of thing. But length at any position really in football is a trait. Just like size is a trait for a quarterback. There's a difference between, Josh Allen and Baker Mayfield. 6'5", 240 is a trait. And Rousseau, he is a really long player. You're 100% right. He jarred Sewell on that first rush with speed to power, but then his length and his reach really allowed him to kind of clear that arc. And he got credit for the sack, but you're right. Phillips kind of forced Goff, who obviously is not a second reaction mover, forced Goff to kind of have to, go down. But I'm real anxious to see Rousseau continue to develop because I wasn't sure watching his college tape. Obviously, he opted out in 2020, but I wasn't sure watching his college tape in 2019 if he could be a truly dominant edge player. And obviously, they're starting him there, and we'll find out.
I got to ask you this. People always ask me what I think, and for a comparison, for a guy who's really good with his kind of length, you'd think of a guy like, and you make this comparison because I watched him, Jason Taylor of the Miami Dolphins.
Yes.
Long guy with great reach, and he played with great leverage. Is that like maybe the top end for a guy like Rousseau?
Well, if that's the top end, it would be pretty good because
right, I'd take that.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the guy's in the Hall of Fame, but
yeah, the guy's in the Hall of Fame.
Right.
I think they'd be okay, and
yeah, I'd be
the
all
Bills
right
Mafia would be okay with that. But yes, and the thing about Rousseau, that second sack or that second rush that I mentioned, it wasn't a sack, I found really interesting because it was that one-arm stab where he used that inside arm, and if you're proactive with that stab and can get your hand inside the pass rusher before he can strike you, that's really good because then that length is a factor. And the key for Rousseau, because he's not twitchy or sudden in his movement the way we think of like the Von Millers of the world, but he needs to really be able to use that reach and length, Steve, as you talked about. And if he can really do that with hand usage, then you have something. So that's why I thought those first two, and there's the first one that he got credit for on the sack, that's really important to see because I think that's the way he's going to have to play to be an effective edge pass rusher.
Meanwhile, AJ, who's no shorty himself at 6'6", gets credited with a quarterback hit in the game, got close on a few occasions, but everybody remembers when he made contact on the quarterback who somehow got the ball out for a 1-yard gain for a completion. And Rousseau was not far behind on that play as well, as a matter of fact. But maybe just give us your thoughts on AJ's game.
Yeah, he's in some ways similar in the sense that he's not a sudden, explosive, twitchy mover, but he's got good quickness. Again, using his hands, that needs to be the foundation of his game, being able to play off leverage, being able to play off contact. I think guys who are not truly bend the edge guys, and I wouldn't call Epenesa that guy, they need to be able to play off contact. And there's a feel for that. Now, you can teach some of that, but there's also a feel. And I think that's what we want to see develop with Epenesa to see if he can become that guy, because he's another guy with tremendous length.
Yeah, and Epenesa, obviously, coming into his second year, kind of battled with his weight. Do you still see him, even if he's down to, where he is now, right around or just hovering around 260, as a guy that could reduce down inside?
I do. I thought of him that way when he came out of Iowa, Steve, and we'll see what they do because obviously what they did in this game, and again, it's the first preseason game, so we don't know what that means for when it's, week one and they're playing Pittsburgh, but they reduced Basham, they reduced Obada. I mean, we'll see how they see Epenesa as we go forward. So, because I thought Carlos Basham, coming out of Wake Forest, I thought he was a classic example of a guy who in your sub front could be reduced. And they did some of that, obviously, with him in this game, and we'll see how much they continue to do that through the next two preseason games.
Yeah, they ran like a turbo package there in 2-minute drill at the end of the game, and then they subbed a guy out and put Phillips back in because I think they were worried they might get victimized with a draw play or something and didn't want to give up the yardage. But it looks like they have some kind of turbo package with 4 ends in there. With two of them obviously reduced down. But Basham, yeah, they moved him around in the game, and I don't think that surprised anybody necessarily. And I guess he did that, for a good deal at Wake as well in college. How do you evaluate him outside versus inside? And again, I know it's a very small sample size here with the Bills, but how do you kind of judge what he feels more comfortable doing?
Well, that's hard. I can't speak to what he feels more comfortable doing, obviously, as you know. But, I just look back at my evaluation of him coming out of Wake, and I actually watched him in both 2019 and 2020. And I made the point that I thought he had the look and feel of a strong side DN and not necessarily an open side edge rusher. And I said that my sense was you can move him inside at D tackle and sub fronts unless you rush the quarterback matched against guards and centers. He's got size, he's got length, he's got plus quickness, not explosiveness, plus quickness. Again, hand usage becomes a major factor for him, the ability to win using leverage and playing off contact. But I think that you will see him, just my sense, you will see him get more snaps inside in the sub front.
Yeah, let's stick with the big guys. On the other side, Cody Ford's coming off an injury from a year ago, trying to rehab. They got him
injury.
Yeah, and he's moved back to the right side on the offensive line, the right guard. Give us your feelings about how he played in limited snaps that he got in there.
Yeah, he played the whole first half, 34 snaps. I thought he was really good as a run blocker, Steve, both on base and drive blocks, and really good as a puller in the gap scheme run game. I mean, there was one play where he just took the linebacker, Alex Anzalone, to the ground on a shotgun power run. I think that might have been on the first possession. They ran what we call wham trap, and he was the trapper blocking the one technique. I thought he showed good mobility working to the second level when he was on the back side of outside zone runs. And the thing that really stood out to me, and you love this, and hopefully this stays, this is probably in his DNA anyway, I thought that he played with a competitive edge in the run game. And you like those guys on your O-line. Look, we know, they can't ran the ball in this game, but we know when Josh Allen plays, this team will be a passing team, but we know they want to be more efficient running the ball. It's not a question of volume. They're not all of a sudden going to become the Tennessee Titans, but they want to be more efficient and effective when they do run it. And Ford plays with a little bit of a competitive edge that you like to see from an offensive lineman in the run game.
Yeah, and speaking of that, Brian Daboll, 8 of his first 10 play calls are run plays. I think they were 21 runs, 11 passes in the first half. Yeah. And as you stated, they're not going to be doing that in the regular season, but it looked like the run game was a focus. So with that in mind, just your thoughts on Devin Singletary, who, Greg, worked a lot in this offseason with a speed coach, Nick Hicks, down in Florida, to try to increase his timed speed as well as his explosiveness. I don't know if you saw a difference here in a limited sample size from what he looked like a year ago, but just give us your general thoughts on Devin.
Well, I thought Chrissy looked quick. I mean, I thought that he looked laterally quick. And to me, that's more important than just straight line speed. I mean, it's always great to be able to run fast in a straight line, but I thought he looked laterally quick. And I think one of the things that you look for with a back, and especially I think in this offense where he will get a lot of inside runs, I think you're looking for traffic burst, you're looking for re-acceleration, you're looking for those kinds of things. And that comes from quickness, stop and start quickness. And that's one area in which I thought he looked pretty good. So we'll see as it continues, but they clearly wanted to give him some work in this game, because I don't know what his exact stats were, but I remember at one point early he had 9 carries. So right. I think he had a few more than that, but he had 9 early in the game.
Right, and he did. He got the bulk of the work, running the football. I think he had, I don't know.
Yeah, Zach Moss had a hamstring, so he didn't play.
Yeah, so one thing, I want to stay on the offensive side of the ball, and I said this after the game, that I thought the quarterback position was probably one of the highlights for the team. The way not only Trubisky only threw the ball twice, and he handed it off all night when he was in there, but I thought Jake Fromm and Davis Webb in particular showed some poise in some pretty tough spots. What do you think of those two quarterbacks? I know the season is not going to hinge on the way those guys play in the preseason at all. But what do you think of those? One of them won't even be there. So, right. So give us your thoughts about that.
Yeah, it's interesting. Webb's been around a bit. I was wrong on Webb. I thought he had a chance coming out of college, and he's now with his, third or fourth team. And even if he makes the Bills, he'll make it as the third quarterback, not number 2. I'll tell you what struck me, Steve, watching this game, and I think that he's a little antsy with his feet. And I think he was inaccurate on some throws, some that ended up being completions, but I just think he's a little unsettled. And I don't remember him always being that way, but he did grow up in the air raid offense, and often quarterbacks in the air raid struggle with that at times. I think Fromm, on the other hand, everybody knows what Jake Fromm is. He's just, his arm is probably average. You could even say it may be below average. He did very well in college in the SEC in a run-first offense where everything was really well-defined for him. He obviously made the one great throw on 4th and 10 to Stevenson. It was a go route, and Stevenson got over the top of the corner. He beat him off the line of scrimmage. And there's the throw right there. That was his best throw. But it's, I guess, a battle for number 3. What is your sense? You guys are at least there. What is your sense of it up to this point?
Yeah, I mean, I think they keep 2 on the roster, which is obviously Allen and Trubisky, and then provided these expanded practice squad rules are good to go, they keep at least 1. It's early. I mean, I think Fromm showed them something with the 2-minute drill at the end. I know he's going against third stringers, but be interesting to see going forward what kind of situations they decide to put him in.
Yeah.
I mean, as Coach McDermott said after the game on Friday, that's small potatoes compared to the pressure-packed games he's probably played in college at Georgia.
Right.
I mean, an SEC title game against Alabama with about 12 NFL players on the other side of the football might be more pressure-packed than the situation he saw himself in Friday night in the 2-minute drill.
Fair. But I'm curious, too, as we go forward, and hopefully we'll be discussing this maybe next week, is I think they've got to give Trubisky some dropbacks because, look, nobody wants to see, and I'm not just talking about Bills fans, I'm talking about NFL fans because, as you guys know from what I said this summer, I think Josh Allen is one of the most intriguing quarterbacks that I've ever watched and evaluated, doing this for a long time, and no one hopes that he misses a game, much less a snap. But you've got to find out if Mitchell Trubisky can run this offense at game tempo.
Well, Steve already has him trying to light up the Bears this week. He thinks Daboll's going to give him the keys to the car, and he's going to light up his former team in the preseason game this
And maybe
week.
that's true, But, I mean, regardless of who they're playing, I mean, obviously that's a good storyline for everybody to talk and write about. But wouldn't you guys agree that you have to give him a chance to get some
absolutely. But I think I'll say this, so for the third quarter, Trubisky's going to be the number 2 because of his traits and because of what they've seen. I'll say this, though, Greg, about Fromm and Webb. The third quarterback for the Bills is not so much about how well they can play, but I think it has more to do with what they bring to the table in order to get Josh ready to play.
What they bring to the
and that relationship. So Davis Webb is one of the guys who, he wants to be a coach. He's got a voice in the offense. And I think he's got the trust of Josh Allen. And I think Fromm probably has earned a little bit of cachet as well for what he went through last year as the emergency quarterback. But I think in the evaluation process, I don't think the club could care less about how these guys play, but how they fit in with Josh and their ability to help him get ready.
And I think that's fair, Steve, because as you well know, everybody talks about the quarterback room, and that's very, very important. But on the other hand, I do think, like I said, we hope that it doesn't come to this ever this season. But you still, if Trubisky has to play, this team is a good football team. And whoever is playing quarterback, and as I said, it better be Josh Allen. But if it's not, this is a good team. And you need Trubisky to be ready to go out there and run an offense that they don't have to dramatically change.
One last guy to throw at you from me here, Greg, and it's F.A. Obada. Has time in the league, still young in football, as we know, coming from England. I know the coaching staff here knows he has the physical traits to rush the passer. I think their concerns lie in his ability to read the run, set the edge, and do the right things there. So I don't know. What did he show you on Friday?
Well, and he may not need to do that, Chris, based on who they have on their D-line.
Right.
He may be a guy that can play in your sub-fronts because obviously he got snaps at the wide 9 end. He got snaps at 3 technique and 4 inside. He even had some snaps as a 1 technique in the sub-nickel. So he may be a guy that you don't see play in their base defense, in which case he's not really going to have to spend a lot of time as an edge setter in the run game. But I think he's an athletic kid, and I think he's still really growing as a football player. So he could well end up just being a sub-nickel front player.
Yeah. Last one for me. We saw this preseason game, and all the teams kind of unfurled these rookie quarterbacks. We had Mac Jones, Zach Wilson, Justin Fields. Let's start with the AFC East. Mac Jones took a number of snaps for the for the Patriots. What was he up against, and how did he look?
Yeah, and they didn't ask him to do a lot. There was a lot of quick game. There was a lot of underneath routes. They did give him no huddle to start the third quarter with snaps of empty. I would say that if you're just looking at what the tape showed, he showed the ability to function effectively within the structure of the pass game. I think he must see things a little quicker and play a little faster mentally, and that's to be expected. It's his first time in an NFL game, and I know he's in the SEC. But it's still the NFL, and it's still different. And but he was fine. Look, you guys know everybody makes so much of these games, but he'll learn. It'll be interesting to see how that quarterback competition. I assume it's a competition. How that plays out.
Oh, I think it is 100%. And then Zach Wilson. Again, they didn't ask him to do a whole lot either. The arm talent is obvious. But what did you see beyond that?
Yeah, it's funny you say that because I made the note that he had light, quick feet on his drop and set, live, loose arm with an easy delivery and good velocity. Very comfortable with play action, boot. He's an easy thrower on the run. You'll see a lot of that with the Jets passing game. Plus, they have Mike LaFleur, who's Matt LaFleur's brother, who came from San Francisco, and that's what they do. They do a lot of play action boot, and that fits Wilson extremely well. You could see his easy movement and overall athleticism and that loose arm, which, by the way, we knew all this going in. It's like with Justin Fields, and people were talking about, wow, look, he's mobile. We kind of knew that.
Yeah, right. Well, how about a little bit?
I mean, that's not that to me. That's not a scoop.
Yeah, right. Justin Fields in Chicago seemed to acquit himself extremely well. The Bills are going to see that team this weekend. What can we expect from that guy?
Yeah, Fields, the thing that stood out to me with Fields was I thought he looked incredibly poised and composed and extremely comfortable in the way in which he played. He showed some subtle pocket movement. As we say, he's a very, very good athlete. I thought his ball placement was pretty consistently precise, and that was a good sign. The Dolphins showed him some man coverage, including one robber, some zone coverage, including cover 2. So they did show him some things, and I thought that he was very kind of comfortable and relaxed in how he performed. So it was a positive performance for Justin Fields.
And then real quick, Greg, a guy in your backyard right now who is from this neck of the woods as a former UB quarterback and was even here in a camp at quarterback, now trying to shift to tight end for the Eagles, Tyree Jackson. I know there's obvious veterans at that position, so it's an uphill climb, but what have been the early returns on him?
I've been out just to practice twice, but from people I've spoken to, they say he's had a good camp. And there's some are, again, it's early, but some are saying that is there a Logan Thomas comparison potentially to be made? Because Logan Thomas, obviously a quarterback at Virginia Tech, drafted as a quarterback, and has made the transition with Washington to being a quality NFL tight end. And you can see this catch right here. I mean, if you didn't know that was Tyree Jackson, you would just say that's a tight end making a catch.
Right.
So, again, it's too early to make a big blanket definitive statement, but everything I've heard and what I saw in that preseason game, albeit a very small sample, indicates there may be something there.
Yeah, so maybe he's practice squad and get some time to develop. It'll be very interesting, especially since he was here to develop as a quarterback, now transitioning to tight end. Logan Thomas made the change to tight end here in Buffalo for a couple of years, and now he's enjoying it in Washington.
Greg, we appreciate it. It's great to see you again. Thanks for doing all the work that we don't really like to do and watch film.
Well, Steve, you want me to give you some homework for next week, or probably not?
Nah, probably not. Save it.
He'll go play golf instead.
Give it to Chris. Give my work to Chris.
Yeah, thanks, Steve. Thanks, Greg. We'll catch up with you.
All right, thanks, guys.